All right, let's talk about a massive industry that's been caught in a really strange situation. Basically being forced to plan for two completely opposite futures at the exact same time. This is the story of nuclear power and how it's been holding its breath for decades.
So here's the central question, the real head-scratcher. For years, the nuclear industry has been shrinking, but at the same time, it holds this incredible potential for a huge revival. So how on earth do you manage a business, and more importantly, the people in it, when you've basically got one foot in the grave and the other on a launch pad? And this, right here, just lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you have the hard, cold reality of a 20-year slump in demand for new reactors. And on the other, this constant, powerful hope for a comeback, driven by all these new global challenges. This is what we're talking about, this paradoxical squeeze that the entire sector is stuck in.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this squeeze, we've got to go back. We need to look at the industry's long winter. What actually caused this decades-long slowdown in the first place?
Well, what's so interesting is that the technology itself kind of just plateaued. This is a classic S-curve. It's a pattern you see all the time, where a new technology has this explosive growth, and then it just levels off as it matures. After decades of these amazing jumps in reactor power, the huge leaps in performance were basically over by the 80s. The tech had kind of hit its ceiling.
And yeah, as the tech leveled out, demand just fell off a cliff. I mean, look at these numbers. By the mid-90s, the number of new construction sites for nuclear reactors in a lot of places dropped to zero. Just zero. The market for new plants had, for all intents and purposes, vanished.
But it wasn't just about the tech. It was this perfect storm of things all hitting at once. You had these huge accidents that really shook public trust. Then, cheaper fossil fuels made nuclear look way less competitive. And on top of that, new regulations made it incredibly difficult and risky to finance a giant, multi-decade project like a power plant.
So, okay, with all of that bad news, you've got to wonder, right? Why didn't the industry just pack up its bags and go home? Well, because there's a whole other side to this story, this powerful, persistent promise of a revival.
Well, it turns out there were three huge things that kept that hope for a nuclear comeback alive. First, and this is a big one, it's a carbon-free source of energy. Second, uranium supplies are just more geopolitically stable than oil and gas. And third, the entire existing fleet of reactors is getting old and will eventually need to be replaced, which creates this massive built-in market for the future.
And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about here, 33,000 megawatts. That's what the United States alone was expected to need between 2000 and 2014 just to replace its old plants. That is a huge potential market, and it's exactly why companies couldn't just walk away.
And this is where we get to the real heart of the paradox. Because this whole story, it isn't really just about markets or technology. It's about people. Specifically, it's about the incredibly skilled, super specialized workforce that makes the whole nuclear industry run.
See, this workforce is really unique. For one thing, they're an older crowd, super experienced, with the average employee being over 40 years old.
And because they've been around, they have this incredible depth of knowledge. We're talking an average seniority of over 18 years in the industry.
And get this, they are unbelievably loyal. The average turnover rate is less than 3%. I mean, these aren't just jobs for them. These are their entire careers.
So this puts you, as a manager, in an absolutely impossible spot, right? You've got this amazing brain trust, this incredible pool of expert talent, but the very thing they were hired to do, building new plants, well, that work is completely dried up. How do you keep them engaged and on the payroll, ready for a comeback that might not even happen?
And this chart just lays out the impossible bind they were in. I mean, think about it. To cut costs, your brain tells you stop hiring, slash the training budget, lay people off. But to keep your essential skills for the future, you have to do the exact opposite of all of that. You're being pulled in two directions at once. It's a total catch-22.
So how in the world do you escape a squeeze like that? Well, the smartest companies, they found a way. But it wasn't some single magic bullet. It was a clever, coordinated, two-pronged solution.
The key, it turned out, was to attack the problem from two different angles at the same time. It couldn't just be an HR plan, and it couldn't just be a business strategy. The two had to be woven together, perfectly in sync, to have any chance of balancing the need to cut costs with the need to preserve those vital skills.
So on the HR front, they got really creative. Instead of just firing people to save money on labor, they started focusing on capital productivity, basically how to get more juice out of the stuff they already owned, the plants themselves. They set up mobile maintenance teams that could service a bunch of different sites, and they fought to protect their training budgets, realizing it was a pretty low-cost way to make a huge investment in their people.
And then, on the strategy side, they did some things that probably looked kind of crazy from the outside. Some companies would take on these projects that didn't make much money, but they saw it as an investment in their people, a way to keep their team's skills sharp. Others branched out into related fields, like decommissioning old plants, which, it turns out, requires the exact same set of core skills.
And what this did was create this amazing upward spiral, this virtuous cycle. The smart HR stuff took the financial pressure off. That breathing room let them make these bold strategic moves, like trying out new markets. And those new projects kept their best people busy and engaged, making sure their skills were razor sharp and ready for the day the industry finally came roaring back.
So, the big takeaway here, this really isn't just a story about nuclear power plants. Not at all. It's a lesson for pretty much any industry that relies on super smart people and is facing a crazy, uncertain future. You know, from aerospace to even AI.
And there's this quote from the source material that just nails it. A factory, a physical asset, it rusts and breaks down if you don't use it, right? But human competence, the skills and knowledge of your people, is the total opposite. It actually gets stronger and better the more you use it and share it. Treating your people like a machine you can just turn off is the fastest way to lose your most valuable asset.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. The nuclear industry faced its paradox. But now, with technology and markets changing faster than ever, what's going to be the nuclear paradox for the next generation of industries? And will they be clever enough to find their way through it? Thanks for tuning in.